Okay. Hello, everyone. I realized I am capable of giving another episode. And there's also, since it's Saturday, there's a Discord event as well. Worlds that There we go. Okay. So, what can I say? What can one human being out of 8 billion on a rock in the middle of spinning in the middle of nowhere say? And in reality, we can speak about three things, strangely. We can speak about past events, we can speak about present events, or we can speak about future events. And so when I looked at human beings, I'm like, okay, there's so many people who are convinced by the past has sold them. And in some sense, it sold itself to them. And then there's some people who are convinced by the present, right? And it's not that their past has sold them, it's pretty much their free will is, you can say, it's kind of hilarious. It's like, if a being is too lazy to care for time, could that being be enlightened? Gotcha. It kind of seems like we're living and dying for reasons beyond our understanding, but at the same time, we're like, yo, we can understand it. Just a second, guys. Okay, found it. Let's continue. By the way, either stay for the whole talk, or if you leave the talk, just don't return, because I'm treating this like an auditorium. Too much movement of the crowd distracts the performer. Similarly, anyways, just something for viewers to consider. That means that's the intent I have with these talks. Either listen to them or don't. Anyways, let's continue. Worlds that discovered us. What could this idea suggest? What could be so fascinating? I was talking about the past, we came to the present. And then there's present events, like what's going on right now, like me existing and experiencing, communicating. It's kind of like my life, the purpose of my life is being present. Okay. I gave a very analytical episode and this earlier today, and I thought, maybe this one I write it a bit differently. So what can the poet say about worlds that discovered us? What can consciousness do with all the stuff in space that it's being? You see, there's so many types of realities, so many ways to communicate, so many ways to see. And what's remarkable is that everything has emerged from the silence. It's remarkable how much of life is silent. And it's like if you're worthy, if you're blessed, you're allowed. You have a voice. It's all in the hands of the divine. Literally and poetically and metaphorically. So, why are we being individuals in a world? Why does the mind have an ability to simulate incomplete versions of reality and act upon them? Why is fiction experiencing non-fiction in the inner realms? And why is non-fiction experiencing fiction in the outer realms? You see, there is a mystery here. We're not just an object, and to reduce ourselves to such is a mistake. Now, of course, it's not that we're not, when I say we're not objects, I'm just saying like we're not just objects. You see, like that's a completely different, context. And somebody say, yo, I'm not an objective being. It's like, okay, I am. I experience something I've defined as objectivity, but what is the true mystery of reality? It could be actually the idea of not just selves being handed down in the same world, but in some sense, which is like the genetical program on the surface of the earth, but in some sense, worlds being handed down. Do you understand? That means there's some Olympians carry an Olympic torch. And imagine there are some beings that carry worlds. I caught on to it that there is something within the human experience that has to trust its own distrust if it wants to distrust something. We have been brought to the greatest game. The game that we don't know how to play. Life is so incredible. You don't know if you need to, love it, be mad at it, Oh my God, what fell? Something of great significance fell. Hold on, guys, up here. Okay, to continue. It's just this idea, I was just fascinated by this idea that, okay, Olympians are passing down torches, evolution is passing down senses of self. And I thought, what if worlds can be passed down? And then what kind of being would pass down a world like a torch? And what's the intent of even passing something down? Like, isn't it weird that there's something here in the middle of nowhere, like in this random space, there's something here and it has its own agenda. right? So what really Darwin understood is that the natural world has a sort of agenda. And I think this is remarkable, you know, because it was as if man is not, the aliens are not around, but there are biological bodies. It's like there's a mystery there. What can I say, you know? Just in the middle of a world, you know, tired and eternal at the same time. So I'm gonna bring the notepad here. Maybe this way there could be, as you know, the British say, structure. Giving this lecture some structure. Yeah. Alright, so worlds that discovered us. So we come here and we make a note. Discovered us refers to discovery, which could be an act of both a which is a conscious act, performed by a limited or like formed being, right? So discovery is a human idea. So discovered us refers to, I mean, it's not just a human idea, it's just the act of consciousness. So refers to discovery, which is a conscious act, which is consciousness by an entity that can still discover more. So pretty much, I'm looking at the sentence "worlds that discovered us." I'm thinking about the idea of discovery. I'm paying attention to that. I'm like, okay, discovery is something that human beings have done, but the human beings, like if we were to look at the geometry of what's happening, is that we're seeing actually like a conscious being. So it's like any being that is consciousness. So like even lesser species can discover, insects can discover, but it doesn't mean they can be conscious of the discovery. Maybe we don't know that. You know, the fascinating thing about the idea of a soul, if you consider like everything has a soul, even an ant has a soul, you know, the whole world has a soul. If you consider a soul, right, a soul is neither an object or subject, which means that there is neither, it's as if we're beings that we can't know from the effect side of the coin. But from the causal position, we're being it. It's like we're being truth, but we don't know how. Because the way our knowledge has been built is a bit unnatural from our development. Oh my god, guys, thanks for letting me know. The mic was off and I was like, you know, going next level. And anyways, you know, I suddenly, you know, when the mic was off, guys, I suddenly started shouting and I noticed my hair turn yellow. You know, then I was like, yo, you know, this is too much for a Starbucks parking lot, you know, when I'm using its Wi-Fi, like. anyways, what I was saying is that what if this life is like a game? What if it has levels, right? And what if in some sense like there is a clue to the game of life, and the clue is right there in front of us, and the clue is that you have two legs, you have two hands, you have two eyes, you have two nostrils. You see, it's like the two eyes are seeing the same moment. So what I'm saying is we're so conditioned to think that we're just being one thing, but imagine it was as if like every moment you notice, just like you have two eyes that see the same, you are an inner life, an inner version of you, and an outer version of you are happening at the same time. But the way they're happening at the same time, and you can notice it, this is what they say in the Upanishads: the seer of the seen is unseen. Which is another way of saying the director of the film is not on the film set. You know, it's very strange. Sometimes I wonder, you know, what's the point of being an entity? Like, why? You know, like, and I was like, yo, why did the trees bring us here? You know, to me, it's kind of like the plant kingdom. First of all, the mineral kingdom awakened the plant kingdom, the potential for the plant kingdom, and then the plant kingdom awakened the animal kingdom, and then the animal kingdom awakened to itself as the human kingdom, right? And now this human kingdom is separated from nature's kingdom, and so it's wondering what it's going to do. Do you understand? There's something like when it comes to solving problems, there is a spectrum. This is the cool thing about life. When you're younger, most of life is on auto cruise. But when you suddenly realize you're the pilot of your life, you're not a passenger of your life, then your own not expectation, but your own intent and sense of yourself changes. If somebody says, Mr. Within, in your mystical journey in life so far, what's been the most fascinating, like, transformation? I would say in the middle of a truth seeker seeking a truth, the truth seeker dissolved. The moment the truth seeker dissolved, it was as if it was the revelation of the truth. So what it is, it's kind of like you're looking for like this truth, you're about to touch truth as a truth seeker, and right before you touch truth, your mind wonders, wait a minute, who has been looking for this truth? And you realize you never check to see if you are true. You know, it's like the poetry of you never check to see if you're enlightened. You know, all these people are like, yo, guru, you know, enlighten me. And the guy's like, yo, buddy, have you ever wondered, you know, you might already be enlightened, you know? And the person's like, really? And the person's like, you know, I don't know, buy my course and find out. That's what the world's come to. You know, people, like, it's so bizarre, man. It's so bizarre, you know. To me, I feel the intention of money was to bring purity to the land to the world of man, but it brought impurity somehow because the human nature was not ready. Do you understand? People are not just possessing stuff; they're possessed by stuff, and they're not just possessing their body as an idea, you know, as an unknown force, life force. So, I'm just trying to reach guys like this idea. I'm just trying to see what kind of imagery I can find for how a world can be passed down. And I'm like, okay, In the outer realm, selves are being passed down. The selves are harboring worlds. So we could say technically evolution is not an evolution of a physical thing, but it's an evolution of an event, right? Because this is the weird thing, I think, where this is so hard for the species to kind of make sense of. But you see, evolution at some point became an object, became a subject to itself. Right now, this object that has become a subject to itself, it has subjectified everything else in accordance to how it considers itself a subject. And so there is an artificial subjective overlay of meaning upon everything that's just being geometry and stuff in space. So what I'm saying is it's kind of like evolution of the gene, like children of the next generations, constantly being born. It's not just like a physical thing. It's just the DNA is being passed down. The DNA translates to memory. Memory is a subjective event. The subjective event has an archetype of selfhood in it. Do you understand? Sometimes it's so weird. It's like who was it? I think it was Sadhguru. He's like, yo, you don't know what your ancestors look like, but guess what? Their nose is on your face. Bam! And the crowd started clapping. Like as if like like the hungry people of the Colossus. You know. It's fascinating. It's like our bodies are starving for food. Our minds are starving for truth, you know? Or I should say, our minds are starving for, uh, information. This is really it. I mean, this is what peace of mind means. For the longest time, I was like, inner peace. What the hell? Like, what the heaven does that mean? And I was like, yo, inner peace. It means, peace means stillness. I got the sense from a pond. Sometimes nature can teach you things that no human can. It's like when you see a pond settle, the ripples on a pond settle, it's like, is that inner peace? And could it be that if the human being, as some traditions and sages have said, if you stop doing what is unnecessary, then the necessary finds you, right? So it's kind of like we're doing something that's working against our. It's as if like right now human beings. Okay. Let me relax a little bit. Okay, what is a human being? A human being is a subjective inner world carrier system. So it's an objective mechanism that is carrying on a subjective. Like, why are we following our desires? Why did Maslow say self-actualization? Right? Why did Maslow and the sociologists say, yo, the human beings, they just want to, after they're done physically surviving, they're going to want to non-physically survive, which means they're going to in some sense want to psychologically survive. And after they have psychologically survived, right, they're going to want to self-actualize. So it's as if it's hilarious, but the Abrahamic story is kind of like it's the evolution of culture. From sin, you're going to like paradise. So it's another way of saying from inefficiency, this whatever's going on in this world is becoming more efficient. You know, we're discovering worlds, and worlds are discovering us all the time, just by this view that human beings have conversations. You know, light is the, let's say, they say light is the smallest energy carrier system, right? And it's kind of like the biological human entity is a carrier system for a witnessing, I don't want to say life force, I want to say world force, as if it's the life of the world's force. It's the life force of the world. So the idea of, can worlds be passed down? I mean, of course they're being passed down all the time. But when I say can worlds, like I mean, I was thinking of, like, you know, the whole cosmos. Can this whole cosmos be passed down as if it's an object? But the idea of something being passed down means that there has to be someone to pass it down, which always renders a higher dimension. So it's literally an infinite, not regress, but express. What I'm saying is the idea of a world discovery renders an infinite higher dimension always. Do you know? Because who is doing the discovery? Who is doing the passing down? Right? Like, there's something so fascinating. I don't know, anybody who's been fascinated by a Rubik's Cube, it's like the mysticism is the next Rubik's Cube of humanity. It's wondering about what we are with the realization that we have never existed before. Like, you know, it's like right now if somebody says Mr. Within, you know, can you play the piano? Can you play the can you play, let's say if somebody says Mr. Within, I don't know, can you play an instrument you've never played before? You know, and I'll be like, I don't know. Do you know? That's the thing, right? We don't know what chess moves are going to come in our life in the future, you know. But it's about, like, the attention to where it's happening, right? I was listening to this lecture on business strategy, and they were saying something very fascinating. This question of what has to be true, what does have to be true. What has to be true, not what has to be true. I forget the exact term, okay? But the idea was, it's like, what needs to be true for something to happen? And then how possible is that truth? You know, how possible is that implementation? So let me see an example. An example would be, is it possible to build an advanced civilization on Earth, you know, or to at least, you know, plant the seeds or get the ball rolling in a period of, let's say, 50 years? I don't know how long. I'm just planning to see. I don't know. Let's say I'll be alive 50 years. So is it possible to do a next, like a leap, like the human species does a next level leap in 50 years? Is it possible? In the inner realms, of course, the blueprints of the possibility are there. So for the mind, many things are probable. But in the outer realms, if we're checking the possibility there, I mean, it has to be literally like 8 billion human beings just snap out of behavior has led to ideology. And then that ideology passed down. Like, it's not just history. This is the hilarious thing. The bodies of people may die, but their philosophies, their ideas are timeless, right? And so, as long as humanity is conscious, to me it's hilarious. It's literally like a flashlight, you know, on, like, imagine there's like a beach and you put a flashlight on the sand, okay? And literally you can move the flashlight different direction and it lights up a completely different sand. So to me, it's like the human brains have a certain range of conscious acceptance of reality, and now they have to be very selective of what they're allowing to, in some sense, become a part of their world. So it's another way of saying you not have to. You have to be mindful as a creature, as a physical creature. You have to be mindful as a creature of language. You have to be mindful as a creature of attention. And ultimately, once you reach the universal presence, it's another way of saying, at the beginning of life, you were a known entity moving, walking in an unknown world. Most likely, for the advanced civilization, they're going to be the unknown. The advanced civilization is going to be like unknown beings with an unknown like faith. Do you understand? They say believe in yourself, but imagine you were an unknown being. Our attention is a sacred flame that illuminates the environment into subjective meaning, which can then, by the free will, be resculpted, remodified, and whatnot. You know, when people wonder about what is learning, what is like understanding, what is knowledge. So what it is the thing is that you have to understand in like the space-time continuum where you have arrived, you find that this is one of the most important dualities. So life is like the best way, I would say, to explain life, even let's say if a young child asked me, if an extraterrestrial asked me, you know, if the leaders of nations asked me, you know, if somebody evil asked me, somebody good asked me, whatever. I would say it like it starts with a point, like a dot on a piece of paper, and then imagine as you live life and experience versions of yourself, you're drawing lines on this piece of that go through this dot. That dot is how energy and existence is just experiencing one moment of time, which is present, the whole present. So you can say direct experience is like, it's like consciousness is like one memory that just like we have smaller cells and a bigger one, right? It's like the bigger cell is consciousness, and within consciousness there's smaller consciousness. This might sound bizarre, but it is. For example, the consciousness of your biological body, the consciousness of other beings in the environment, the consciousness both outside and inside, various fields there. So these lines that are intersecting this dot, what is the point? Right? The point is that you start off as this physical singular viewer in life, and then you become separated. Right? So this separation means the separation of one singular moment of experience, as if there was one existence, one experience. Then the one existence didn't change, but the one experience became two experiencers. So as if a young child that hasn't learned language is like only one type of self. Per human being that has learned language, imagine the child is like 12 years old, it's like it's become two senses of self, two experiencers. That means it remembers the singular existence before the language, and then also is experiencing itself as a subjective self in the moment. Now, the first duality is the duality of the separation of the self and the world. The moment we have that separation, we have a self. So it's as if we converted a world into a singular self. Now, we converted that singular self into a dualistic self, a good self, a bad self, a right self, a wrong self. Do you see? There's a geometry at work behind everything that has meaning. That geometry doesn't mean it's a geometry that's comprehensible. For example, Plato's world of forms was a purely geometrical dimension. Do you know, in my inner realms kind of, there were times where I was like, why do some people see so many abstract things like angels and aliens? Why am I just seeing geometrical shapes just move around everywhere? And then I realized it was a sort of my attention had remembered the world of forms. I would say that, I don't know, but in other moments of reality, I have been a designer. When it comes to designing things, there's a familiarity there that's not just limited to the human archetype. This is why when you're having fun, you release abilities that are not just limited to the human time. Anyways, this is going towards the domain of metaphysics. Anyways, worlds that discovered us, it's a suggestion of like there's so many worlds out there. I mean, like, think of us discovering like the electron, right? Think of us discovering subatomic particles, the atom, and all of this, right? And imagine if they discovered us, right? Or imagine like we are like, do you understand? Like, there's so many things. The world is like a massive, I don't want to say chain of events, but it's like literally it's literally like a concert. And there is like endless cause and effect, like, events taking place. It's literally the world is a collection of endless events that can be translated into infinite worlds. And I guess I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope this episode was interesting. Much blessings and namaste.